Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you stopped by today because today we are going to be continuing our Zodiac series. So I went through the comment section to see what you guys wanted to see next in our previous Zodiac series. And you guys seem to really want to see Libra and Pisces, and Libra just barely won. So we're going to do Libra today, and then I think Pisces will end up being our next in the series. Anyways, let's get started. Okay, so my idea for the Libra scale is to kind of make it a mix between a sculpture and an art doll, mainly because I want something stable enough so that we can have a functioning scale, and to do that we need to have something that stays level. So for this I'm going to start off with a wooden base to build everything off of. I'm going to take a wooden dowel and I'm going to drill a hole, that way this can stick right through our base, and I'm going to start building everything off of the wooden dowel. So I'm going to start with adding just a little bit of tinfoil to the wooden dowel, that way I can build up the shape that I want before adding the clay. And then I'm just going to make a bunch of strips of clay and start wrapping around the base of this, just getting everything completely covered in clay, and then I'm going to blend everything together. So my idea for our scale is to make it look like a dragon, and then the wing portion will be the actual functioning scale. So the majority of the body is going to be sculpted, but I do want to have some posable bits. So I'm going to have the tail posable, the neck posable, and then the arms posable. And then the rest of the body is going to just be a sculpted piece. So right now I'm just trying to figure out the basic layout of the body. Where is the neck going to be? Where is the tail going to connect to? Kind of lay out where the shoulders are going to go so we have a spot to add the arms to. And then I also want to figure out where the back legs are going to go. Now with the wooden base, I really don't want to cover the entire thing in clay. I just want to sculpt the dragon on top of it. So right now I'm just trying to figure out where all the claws and the layout of the foot is going to go. I'm going to lay out the strips of clay in place, kind of blend everything together, and just kind of clean up the edges of them. And I just want to have the feet kind of draped over the edge of the base. And then how we're going to connect the head and tail, I'm going to kind of make a circle spot where we're going to end up gluing the fabric. So I'm just going to kind of lay that out, and I don't want to make the entire thing really heavy. So after I get that laid out, I'm going to kind of hollow it out a little bit. And this will also give us a spot to glue in some wires so that we can make the neck and the tail posable. And then for the scale portion, I need to figure out how to rest it in place to where it stays nice and even. So I'm going to end up using a wooden dowel for this as well, and I'm going to use it and push into the clay on the very top portion of the dragon to mark out where I want that to rest. So I'm just going to kind of lightly push it in, figure out where I want it to go, and make sure that it works to where it can go back and forth and it's not just holding it steady. I want it to actually go up and down. Anyways, we have that baking, and we do have a bunch of other clay pieces that we need to make, and I'm going to start on the clay head first. And I'm just going to start on my clay head the same way that I make most of my clay heads for my art dolls. I'm going to use a tinfoil base to build everything off of, and I have it attached to a glass container. That way I have something to hold on to, and I don't have to worry about sticking my fingers in the clay that I'm working so hard on sculpting. So I'm going to get this covered in clay, smooth everything out, and start laying out the details of my clay head. Also, I have some really small resin horns that I want to use for this dragon, so I'm going to end up putting those on the head as well. So I'm just going to start putting everything together, laying out where the horns are going to go, figuring out where the details like the eyes and stuff are. And other than that, I'm not going to add a ton of detail to the face because it's kind of small, plus I have an idea for painting it that's going to end up kind of covering up most of the details that I'm going to sculpt. Okay, next thing I'm going to sculpt are some really quick claws. So I made some wireframes for these, nothing fancy. I'm not going to throw in a bunch of detail to the foot itself. I'm just focusing on the shape of the claws because I'm going to have some fur fabric covering things. So I'm just going to get the wireframe covered in clay, blend everything together, and we're going to bake these along with our clay head. So I'm going to put those in the oven for probably about 30-45 minutes at 275 Fahrenheit. And then the last thing that we need to make out of clay is the scale portion itself. Now this is going to be a little bit difficult. I'm going to start off with a wooden base to have everything built off of. And the reason this is going to be difficult is because we need to have it perfectly balanced. So we need to have everything weigh exactly the same on it, or it's not going to weigh the portions on the scale correctly. I actually want it to kind of work. So while I'm sculpting this, I'm putting it on our body sculpture to make sure that it stays even while I keep adding clay to it. So I'm just going to make sure while I'm slowly sculpting this that I'm double checking that I'm making it even. So I'm not going to add a ton of detail to this. I'm just going to add a little bit of decoration to make it look dragon-like, add some decorative claws at the end, and of course I need to make sure that there's some holes at each end so we can add the chains that are going to connect the scales. And for these, I'm just going to try and make some really simple plates that will have holes in it. That way we can connect it to the scale. So I'm just going to roll out some clay, make sure it's nice and even, cut some circles, and then drape these over some other glass containers. That way they kind of have a lip and they look more like a really shallow bowl. Okay, so that is pretty much all of our clay pieces. So now we can start on painting everything. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to primer everything black. So I'm going to go over all of my clay pieces with black paint. And then my idea was to kind of add a bit of a galaxy design to the belly and the under portion of the face. So I'm going to kind of splatter on some purples and blues and maybe a little bit of red, and then after that I'm going to add some little white dots to make the stars. For the larger ones I'm going to kind of make them like crisscrosses and really define them a little bit more. So like I said, I'm going to do this to the belly of the dragon, and I'm also going to do it to the under portion of the head. And then other than the galaxy decoration, I just want to add a bunch of gold everywhere. So I'm just going to kind of go over the back of the dragon, the rest of the head, the horns, the claws, the bits for the scale, just everything with a bit of a dusting of gold. I don't want to make it like a perfectly clean gold. I want some of the black to peek through, so I'll kind of make it look a little bit rougher by not going over the entire thing with the gold paint. So again, I'm just kind of messing around with adding a bunch of gold and decoration and stuff. And then once we have all the painting done, we'll let it dry. I'll resin over all the clay pieces, and then we can start putting the rest of the dragon together. Okay, so the first posable thing that we're going to add to our dragon is the tail. So I'm going to glue in a wire in the hole that we have where the tail is going to connect. I'm going to make sure it's the same length as the fabric I'm going to use to make the tail. And then for the fabric itself, I'm going to use a gold sequence and a little bit of black fur fabric for the end. So I'm going to end up gluing this around the base portion, and then we can stuff and close it up. And for the arms, we're going to add a wireframe for these as well. So I have some holes already drilled into the shoulder sections, and I'm just going to glue our wires in place. I'm then going to take the fabric that I want to use for the arms, which is the same type of fabric we used for the tail. I'm going to have the ends of the arms really fluffy, and the upper portion of the arms are going to be the sequins that we used on the tail. So I'm going to get these glued into place around the shoulders, and then we can adjust the length of our wires to figure out how long we need them for the arms. I'm then going to take our little claws that we made, and I'm going to attach the wireframe that those are built on to the other wireframe. So I'm just going to wrap everything together, and then we can take our fabric and glue it around the base of our claws. You want to let that dry a little bit, and then we can stuff and close up the arms. And just like adding the tail and the arms, we're going to also add the neck and head the same way. Add our wire, attach our fabric around the base, figure out the length, adjust the length of the wire, connect the head to the wire, glue everything together, and stuff and close up. After that, I'm just going to add a few extra decorations. I figured we could make some of the stars a little bit sparklier, so I took some little decorative gems and I glued them onto the larger stars that we have painted on the body. So I'm just going to kind of randomly glue these in place. I'm going to add a little bit more sequence around the hip and body portion of the dragon. That way it doesn't just stop at the tail, it kind of blends a little bit more. And then of course we need to put our scale together so we can put that on the dragon. Okay, and here is our Libra piece. I had so much fun with this one. It's been so long since I've done more of a sculpture piece, and even though it's still got posable features, I really enjoyed doing the sculpture for the body. So this piece will end up being in my Etsy shop, so if anyone wants to give him a new home, check the links down below. I also have a bunch of other art dolls down there as well. And of course, if you want to try and make your own art dolls and you're curious on what I end up using to make mine, I've got a bunch of different art supplies linked down below for you to check out too. Now these are affiliated links, so if you do buy anything through them, they do help support the channel. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, to all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!